Hi, I'm Sarah Cowgill, along with Andrew Moran, Dave Patterson, Graham Noble, and Scott Cosenza. And this is the Conservative Five, Liberty Nation's online TV news program. During last weekend's Libertarian Party convention, former Georgia Senate candidate Chase Oliver emerged as their presidential nominee. He likes to refer to himself as armed and gay, but before that decision, as expected in the crazy atmosphere of American politics, the party invited Donald Trump and RFK Jr. to give it their best shot at winning over the crowd. President Biden was also invited. He deferred. Maybe that was a good strategy on his part, as the boos were somewhat amplified for the other two. Liberty Nation was actually on the ground at the convention to see all the hoopla for himself. Scott Cosenza Esquire, give us the straight skinny, please.
Well, you're right that Biden wasn't there to be booed, but I don't think that accrues to his benefit. Trump went in and mixed it up, and the Libertarians in the battleground states, in several of the battleground states, the number of people who voted for the Libertarian candidate for president in the last cycle was greater than the margin of victory. So if all those votes, for instance, went to Biden or Trump, it would assure them victory in the upcoming election, for instance. So I think it was a great play to go for the Libertarians. It is the most significant third party in this country, and they have wide ballot access. And I don't think it costs Donald Trump anything. I know he'll hear more about the politics of it in terms of votes for people who were already going to vote for Donald Trump. So if he gained votes, it's all a win for him. And I think that, I could just tell you that I was impressed as a reporter in the room, and I'm a small L libertarian, which is to say that I'm not a current party member, but I am a member of that political group in terms of it was impressive that he came and addressed libertarians and spoke to their concerns. And I was there for 3 days, Friday, Saturday, and a little bit of Sunday. And all the people I spoke with, I only found a few who completely rejected the idea that Trump should be invited there or allowed to speak. Everyone else, with some small exception, was happy that he was there addressing their concerns from the libertarian perspective. They thought that it might be a win for Trump, but it was also a win for libertarianism.
It's unlikely their outsider would gain a whole lot of traction, but in your mindset, Dave, who lost the least? Was it RFK Jr. or Trump?
Well, Sarah, to take a page out of Andrew's Economics 101 book, I think that the one who lost the least would be the one who invested the least. So I'd say, Donald Trump lost the least. I mean, he put in 34 minutes and, trying to appeal to libertarians. If you have any kind of an agenda for positive change, clearly stated outcomes, it's going to be a hard sell in a crowd that nominates a fellow whose claim to fame is that he never won an election when he ran for Congress and believes that a reasonable goal in the November general election is 2% of the vote. Most American voters, I don't think, warm to candidates who are admittedly disruptors. Robert Kennedy, on the other hand, I believe sees each of these events that he participates in as, if not a must win, or at least a must be influential substantially. That's not true with Trump, I don't believe. Generally, I think Trump's objective is visiting these non-traditional political groups to demonstrate a legitimate desire to address Americans' needs in all points of view. And I think that came across in what he said. It's why Biden does not do this, because his campaign doesn't want to address the needs of a wide variety of folks who have needs. And basically, I don't think he cares one way or the other. There are specific venues where Trump wants to be persuasive. The rally in Bronx was a good example, and I think that was a win for him.
Well, the rally in New Jersey was even bigger. I mean, I've never seen anything like that, but I'm wondering now if we have over diluted the protest vote. Maybe it's just these guys are going to be less of a threat than before, Graham. I mean, am I crazy, or does this seem to be just scattering now?
Well, at the end of the day, I'm not sure that I really believe that anybody, any third party or independent candidate is ever much of a threat, except now, normally I would say that every election cycle, except this time around, I do believe that RFK does actually pose a somewhat significant threat to Biden's chances of being re-elected. As for the Libertarians, well, I'm kind of like Scott. I'm very much a small L libertarian. I don't have a great deal of respect for the Libertarian Party. I just think that, you know, when are these people ever going to get their act together? But in terms of, you know, libertarian principles and libertarian economics, and you know, I'm very much aligned with all of that. I do think it was a great idea on the part of the Libertarians to invite both of those candidates and even to invite Joe Biden. It was obvious that Biden was never going to set foot inside a Libertarian Party convention. But, you know, kudos to both Trump and RFK that they did. And as actually Mr. Cosenza said on a recent episode of Liberty Nation, it was a really... the Libertarian Party could consider it a feather in their cap, if you like, that both of these candidates deigned to actually show up and address them, because that actually shows that these two candidates, at least, take them seriously as a voting bloc. I think it's a bit weird that RFK would think for 1 second that Libertarians are going to warm to him, because he's apart from the being opposed to vaccine mandates, there's nothing that RFK shares with Libertarians ideologically, as far as I can tell. I mean, he pretends to on some issues, but then
I can tell you that he gives a good speech, Graham.
Sorry?
He sounded a bit like a libertarian when he was speaking to the assembled.
Well, I think that was contrived entirely, because he says, you know, he said so many things that lead us to believe that he is about as far from libertarian as you could possibly get. I mean, you know, he referred to the NRA as a terrorist organization and stuff like that.
That wasn't lost on the assembled either.
Right. Good.
Well, I can only imagine. That's where the booze came from. Andrew.
Yes.
Okay, you know what the elephant in the room is.
I would have agreed with Graham Noble that this was a great idea. But at the end of the day, when they chose Chase Oliver as the nominee, many Libertarian Party voters are now going to switch to either RFK or Trump, because this Chase Oliver guy, he is not a byproduct of the whole Mises caucus of the Libertarian Party. You know, now that he's the pick, you have mainstream libertarians, you know, Clint Russell, the redheaded libertarian. These people are actively saying we are not going to support the Libertarian Party now. And it's understandable. This Chase Oliver guy, armed and gay, he says, you know, he likes drag queen story time. He likes wearing masks, all this nonsense. And maybe Scott can answer this to me, but how did he win the nomination when the Mises caucus is supposed to be...
Okay, so let's just pause for a second here. And Sarah was talking about the commutation for Ross Ulbricht, which I hope we'll get to in a minute. But Andrew's talking about a schism within the Libertarian Party that happened over the past basically 2 election cycles, and created this kind of breakaway movement to get sort of libertarians back in charge of libertarianism. And they got control of the party in the form of the party chair and many of the power positions, but they weren't able to carry the vote for the nominees. And Dave Smith, who was the most kind of publicly forward kind of spokesperson for that movement, he's a comedian, he's been on Rogan and so forth. He said that what happened was there weren't enough votes for either one side to make the difference, and the middle broke the way it did. And that was just, you know, a number of people that aren't involved in the inside baseball kind of, you know, Mises caucus schism. They were the controlling vote that went for this more, what seemed as like a mainstream choice. And so that's the reason for the schism. But I just want to turn the conversation back to the millions of people that cast a vote for Libertarian Party candidates and what they're going to do. And that's, I think, I think it was a bit of a political genius move on Trump's part. If he can go and get 1% of the vote in 2 of these swing states, with this appeal to Ross Ulbricht with the commutation and this appeal to libertarians, and I think he can. Well, like you said, it was a 26 minutes, whatever it cost him. I mean, talk about bang for your buck. It makes a lot of sense to me.
Plus, he also told Tim Pool during the convention in an interview that was released the day after that he was seriously considering pardoning Julian Assange. Now, I doubt that's going to happen, but at least that's another way to, extend the olive branch to the Libertarian Party. And I will say it was great. Donald Trump, he's a politician, but he's a comedian. He has that pro wrestler personality. This guy is just an entertaining guy, and that was the highlight of that convention.
All right, now we're going to pivot.
Authentic Trump for that moment. That's for sure. He wasn't.
We are going to pivot. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. Trump jumped out and decided to vow he would commute the sentence of Ross Ulbricht, the founder of Silk Road, who is currently serving 2 life sentences for his platform. And I don't know if that moved the needle at all for people that the libertarians know who he is, but will that move the libertarian vote, Scott?
I spoke with multiple delegates and attendees at the convention for whom it will do just that. It is a deliverable promise, deliverable on day one. That's what Trump said. On the first day of his presidency, he would commute the sentence of Ross Ulbricht, who is a hero, like a victim survivor of the federal government in the eyes of many libertarians. The signs, the Free Ross signs, were papering the room when Trump spoke. He founded the Silk Road, which was a kind of an eBay for illegal drugs, if you will, using Bitcoin to guarantee anonymity on one side of the transaction, which is why it took a long time for it to be shut down. And Ulbricht, who was not convicted of any crime of violence, was sentenced to more than 2 life terms. And so it's those facts that generate the sympathy and outrage over his case, and why it's going to be easy for Donald Trump to justify that to anybody else. When you look at the facts, you wonder, why doesn't Biden beat him to the punch and already pardoned the guy or commuted his sentence? The idea that a nonviolent drug deal facilitator should be serving double life is, odious to many.
I've got a follow-up question. And that is, that was a platform. Okay, it's dark web. It was a platform. Was he convicted of actually doing all of the sales and lining those up?
He facilitated them in a highly effective way.
He facilitated them. Okay, that's what I wanted clarification on.
Yes. And by the way, his motivation for doing so, as stated at the outset, was to remove the pall of violence and shadiness over drug transactions. For some Americans, that may seem laughable, but for Ross, it was a very real thing. Why should a person who wishes to buy and consume drugs also have to suffer through, going to the shady side of town and getting robbed or worse, maybe, because of their want to purchase these prohibited goods?
He should have.
Or are we handing out safe needles and safe spaces now? Isn't that what we're doing now in a lot of different places? We're doing, drug dens where people can get high and be safe. Am I wrong? Of course.
No, you're exactly right. I mean, if he had done it in Oregon or San Francisco, he'd be a free man today.
All righty. Well, that took a weird turn. Anyway, guys, you heard it from the convention attending horse's mouth, that Mr. Scott Cosenza. Thank you so much for being here, and thanks, panel. That's it for our Conservative 5 panel today. Check out our other C5 shows and segments on your favorite video platform. YouTube, Vimeo, Rumble, we're on them all. As well, Liberty Nation has its own Roku channel where you can see all of our TV productions. I'm your host, Sarah Cowgill. Thanks for joining us today. For free thinking, free speech, libertynation.com.